Hi, this is Anna Crowe with the Get Real podcast, where CEOs, CMOs, and communications experts share their real advice. It's 6 questions under 9 minutes because we get to it real fast. So let's get to it. I'm thrilled to have today's guest on. In a few sentences, could you please tell us who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. And hi, Anna. Thanks for having me on the Get Real podcast today. Excited to be here. So, in a few sentences and quickly, my name is Chris Nicholson, co founder and CEO for Impulse Mobile. We are a conversational AI platform focused on driving health engagement across the healthcare ecosystem for providers, health plans, pharma companies, med tech, et cetera, leveraging social determinants of health and real time activation messaging to actually help improve health behavior and health outcomes for our partners.
That's so awesome. I love the work you guys are doing, and it's so critical today, probably more than ever before. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, Chris, what would you say is the best thing about being a leader in your industry?
Well, I think, you hit the nail on the head, which was sort of more now than ever, right? Is that, we are really focused on, helping our partners do good work in the healthcare ecosystem, really providing, tools to improve health outcomes. I think for me, the best thing about being a leader is that it never gets old, right? We don't anticipate things like COVID. We don't anticipate, flu and prevention, years the way that we've seen in the past. And I think for me, the diversity of use cases and solutions that we can help deploy, whether improving medication adherence, helping close gaps in care, improving smoking cessation for, partners and on and on and on. And so I think the diversity of the use cases makes it really exciting and doesn't get old. And then the one piece that's really great is that just this industry, more than any that I've ever been in, just rallies to solve problems. And that to me is really exciting because there's so many things that come up, but they don't really look at it as they're kind of frenemies. And so how can they work together across the industry to make improvements and then go down their path to really compete and build, businesses around that?
I love that. I love problem solving, and you're right. That's such a great asset. You and I talked briefly before the podcast about pre-COVID life and travel and creating a lot of connections that way and speaking and engaging with people. I hear from other leaders that creating authentic connections can be challenging, especially when there's a lot of noise. And today the industry looks, well, the world looks a little bit different. So I'd love to hear your take on that. What are your thoughts on creating authentic connections?
Yeah, I'll break it out in 2 ways, Anna, if it's okay,
Mhm.
for sort of associates and team, and then for our clients. And I think from a team perspective, it has been hard, right? We've had a lot of topics to discuss, related to, riots and political landscape and COVID and health and things really just from a team and a personal perspective. And so we've really tried, more than ever, and it's been more difficult because now we're virtual as a team, right? So it's easier to build an authentic, connection if I can connect with someone and sit at their desk and have a conversation. But now we have to do that virtually, and we do things like weekly lunch updates, on Zoom, with our teams. We do town halls often. We do lots of surveys to get feedback on what's really important and relevant. But we've had to sit down and really have these dialogues, that we didn't have before on these really difficult topics this year. And that building that authenticity and the trust, I think, with the team is more critical than ever. And so we've just tried to be hyper transparent, because we know there's a lot of fear and anxiety, with individuals about companies that are scaling up or scaling down, and all those things that are happening in the market. I think we've been really fortunate to be able to hire and add, 25, 30 people in the team just in the, since the beginning of the year. But we know that other teams have fallen on harder times to work through as well. And so we just really try to stay positive and stay focused on, the mission of our company and focus forward. From a company perspective, when we think about clients, very similar, right? We have to be much more, disciplined on how we're engaging, make sure our message is really relevant for those individuals, and then continue to build that type of trust with our partners, in a different way as well. And so we're trying to build social and not just business interactions with them virtually. But again, just, trying to be as agile as we can in this new space.
Absolutely. And you hit on some of the most important words, right? Transparency, trust, which all build that authentic connection, and just finding new ways to create those because we don't
Yes.
want to get rid of those. We just need to find and to use the word of 2020, pivot to figure out new tools and solutions. So those are some great examples. Do you have any other real advice for other leaders? Is there anything else that you think is really important?
Yeah, I typically don't like to give advice. I have high school and college age kids, and they don't listen that well to advice anyway. So I try to frame it, I think, back to just the golden rule, right? And people go, Chris, it's sort of fundamental when you say, what's the biggest, recommendation or piece of advice? And I think it's that just be good to others, be fair in the business deals that you do, be supportive to the people that you work with. And I can't tell you how many times in my career, and I've been in healthcare alone for 20 plus years, another 10 years in technology before that, how many people that I bump into or that come back from 10 or 12 years ago. I'm working on a particular client deal right now from somebody I worked with 12 years ago. And they literally saw a post that we did on LinkedIn. He sent a message and said, hey, I didn't know you did this, but I'd like to bring you in. And now within 3 weeks, we're working on this really significant opportunity. And it's like, be good to the people you work with, because I guarantee at some point your paths will cross. It is a very, very small world. And there's, usually that 2 to 3 degrees of separation between you and the person you're working with. And so I just always come back to that. And it always surprises me when we see those things happen.
No, that's awesome. That's a great example. And to your point, that may be fundamental, but that's not used by many people all the time anyway. So it's a great reminder, if anything. And you're right. And that forms those great relationships. And you're going to reconnect and connect with people throughout the course of your career and life. So you might as well do it right first time around. Very cool. Well, before we get to our final question, are there any other successful executives such as yourself that you would like to give a shout out to or think should be on this podcast?
Yeah, absolutely, Anna. There's two that come to mind, I think, quickly. One that's a newer connection, and then one that actually, I've worked with for a long, long time in previous walks of life. And so, one is Jim Murray, who's the chief operating officer at Magellan, but I actually worked with him when he was the chief operating officer at Humana for several years. He's one of those individuals that's very much a driver, very much on point, and really taught me that ability to ask why 3 times. Why is this? Why is that? And keep digging to sort of pull the thread to see where things unravel to really get to the bottom of the strategies that you're trying to work on. A really, really great individual. The other would be Patrick Conway, who is the CEO at Care Solutions for Optum. And Patrick, comes from sort of the provider space as a physician, but then that sort of business physician in healthcare. And so I really think it's interesting the way he looks at the marketplace differently from a care perspective than somebody that's really just thinking about it from a business perspective, and the way that he marries those two things together. And so 2 individuals that I think could be really interesting to have a dialogue with.
Yeah, absolutely. They sound phenomenal. Phenomenal. Appreciate that. Well, our final question is more of a fun one. Can you tell us about your first job?
Oh boy. My first job maybe doesn't sound that exciting to many people, but I actually had a lawn mowing business when I was in junior high and high school. And it wasn't just, mow your parents' yard or the neighbor's yard. I mowed over 20 yards a week. And so, that was about 25 to 30 hours on top of school and everything else that I was doing, and working to save for college. And then, of course, for date money and movie money and all those types of things. So, but my aunt, I had this wonderful aunt who gave me a loan for $300 to buy this great lawnmower, a weed eater, like everything I needed to really get the business started. And I had to work to pay her back. And then she helped connect me to lots of people that were in her neighborhood. And so it was almost like this neighborhood of these retired, women whose most of their husbands had passed away before they did. And so I was mowing like yard after yard after yard up and down these streets, in the neighborhood that she lived in. And it was just great ability. And the thing I'm proudest of is not just doing that work, but in the 5 years that I supported all of them, I didn't lose one customer in 5 years.
Wow. Okay. So amazing business lessons right out of the gate.
That's right.
You saw an opportunity. There was demand. There are all these things you saw, right? You filled the market need and you had zero churn. So
all the KPIs, right? So it's good.
You need, you accomplished in your year in high school. I need to have a talk with my kids now. I think they're slacking.
Get them out there. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, how can people get a hold of you or learn more about the company and what you're doing?
Absolutely. No, thanks for asking. So feel free for anyone to connect on LinkedIn. Again, Chris Nicholson, co-founder and CEO for Impulse Mobile, or you can go to www.impulsemobile.com. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Well, we appreciate you joining us, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. This is Anna Crowe. For more insights, visit us at crowepr.com. Thanks so much.